Right, so we're going to work in Photoshop, but first we need to source our images. So, this one, Terminator unit. Okay, images. And this one here is pretty good. This one's not bad, but this one here's a nice one as well. Right, so what we're going to do is have a look. If we right mouse click, there's an option saying Open Image in New Tab. That's the one that gives you the full size image that you can then go save images as with a decent size image. So I'll just check out my downloads. Cool, Terminator. Cool. And then the next one I want to get would be K1. See what we can get with this. Right, that one doesn't look too bad. Let's just have a look back at our image quickly. So this image is pretty straight on, and so is this guy's face. So this is going to be a good match. So let's try and say Open Image in New Tab. Save image as. Right. Okay, so what we want to do is, okay, let's show this in folder, and this, okay. So I want to take this fighter, drop it into Photoshop, because he's my base, he's who I'm working off, and then essentially what I want to do is drop the Terminator over the top of it, because that's the one I'm going to modify to fit this dude's face. So when I'm wanting to resize this, I can't see what I'm looking at all that well. So over here we have the opacity settings, which is how see-through it is. So here I can see a bit of both. Right. So now when I resize, I can kind of see, right, let's just zoom in a bit. Okay, sorry, I use this one here, and I press Z on the keyboard, because if you hover over any tool, and you hover, it'll tell you what it is, and then that one in the brackets there tells you the shortcut key to use that tool. So largely we can see the eyes are pretty much the same distance, the top of the head's roughly the same, the bottom of the jaw's slightly longer, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and rotate this unit, straighten it up, because the image did have the head a little bit kind of cocked. Okay, so that's largely not bad, but what we want to do is individually modify this, because we want to change this part of the image but keep the other part of the image where it is. So if you go Control T to transform, and then right mouse click, and there's this warp option, and that means you can actually take parts of the image, stop it, parts of the image, and then actually push it up and modify it. Now I'm only really worried about the face, so all this stuff over the side doesn't really matter. And so really I want the teeth to kind of line up with his face, the head lines up pretty well, and I want the eyes to line up. This is one of the big major ones. And then, so I use these ones for the ones close to the eye, and I use these ones edges to try and keep the middle bit where I want it, but then also stretch that out and that in. Alright, so it's not going to be 100%, but it's definitely going to get there. Okay, so that's what we're after. We can see here it's got this symbol, which doesn't make editing work all that well. It's like an object, so we rasterize. It'll enable us to use the full editing options there. Now what we want to do is we want to turn the opacity right back up. So the Terminator unit face doesn't look super distorted, even though that we've done this. What we've done is we've changed the face proportions to actually look like the face proportions of our fighter here. So what I want to do now is I want to duplicate this layer and slide this at the top. So now I don't see the Terminator. The idea is what we're going to do is get our rubber, and we're going to rub out the, oh, there's a very large rubber. So we're going to rub out this guy's face, and then underneath it we'll see the Terminator unit. So if I do it as a really bad way, okay, that's what we're going to see. If I look up here, right, there we go. We're going for this kind of look. Yeah, like that one's probably a nicer one to look at. So we can still see the mech unit, there'll be a bit of blood, what have you, but that's largely what it is, and it's the T800 series, which is what we're dealing with as well, funny enough. Right, so obviously this rubbing out looks terrible compared to what we looked at, but you get the gist. So if we undo that, I'm now going to make the rubber work in a way that's going to look more like what we just looked at. So under there's a whole bunch of rubber options, and like I can go star rubbing out, yay, but that's not all that helpful for what we're trying to achieve. So under here, brush number 66 is the one we want. Now in terms of the opacity, we'll turn that down, and the flow will turn that down. Flow, the difference between flow and opacity is more than just the spelling. Flow, if you think of a spray paint, a spray can spraying, if it was 100% flow, it would be spraying cleanly the whole time, just psst. With the flow, it's kind of coughing and sputtering, so it kind of goes in and out, so it's spraying consistently 57% of the time. It just means that when we start rubbing out, it's kind of going to give a bit more mottliness, and it's not going to rub out as aggressively. So get your rubber, or if you hold up and see the shortcut, it's E. So just what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of hold down and brush, and you can hear me clicking a lot, because we just want to slowly detail this up. And when we're doing it, we're trying to think, this guy's getting his face kind of melted off where it's been hit. So in terms of where someone would get the aggressive damage would be the parts that stick out. What we're trying to avoid rubbing out is in, sorry, I use this as a point, these areas. We don't want to get right to the edge, or his sweet ginormous ears that are sticking out. Which they look very mutated from fighting. But anyway, what we want to do is kind of keep more to the middle area, and then have some parts that are good, some parts that are damaged. So some up here and what have you, making it seem a little bit more realistic. So I'm just going to turn the opacity up a bit. Alright. And we'll get some over here. Alright, get over the cheek area. So we do want to kind of fully clean out some areas, but have the skin motley where it kind of stops doing. I'll just change the brush size down a bit. And I can change it back up now when I'm... Let's change this flow, so we'll just, yeah, work in this. So now if I make this 100% and 80, okay. So it's just slowly kind of touching, and it's just being a little bit more subtle with it. So in terms of what we're seeing and what we're getting and what's there and what's rubbed out and what's not. It's kind of a nice look. Right. So what we've got there, that already at that distance looks reasonably good. But the skin, like, it doesn't show any rhyme or reason why it's been damaged or what have you. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually start damaging the skin and kind of burning it and having the kind of blood and all that kind of look. So what we're going to do is get our brush, and we want to change it to a kind of a dark red, and then we want to change this one to a dark red, and then go OK, and then change the top one to a very, very dark red. Okay. Then in our brush, we don't want a standard brush. We don't want, oops, if I put this to 100%, we don't want to see something that looks like this. Okay, it's too clean and what have you. So we want our brush 66, kind of does that speckly again, and we don't want our brush even to be normal. We want it to be color burn. And we'll turn the opacity down, and then let's zoom in, go back to our brush B to go back to our brush. Now what we want to do is we kind of want to just kind of click and work over it. Now that's coming in really aggressively, so turn that down and turn the flow down a bit. Right, and we want to basically be able to click, hold, and just rub it around a bit. But just as we're looking at how it's working out, you can see now that this area up here kind of looks kind of burnt or kind of raw-ish, and that's what we're wanting to get, that kind of effect. So it's not obviously just in here, it's all bloody, but the skin around it's obviously been affected, bruising, etc. So that's the kind of feel and look we're after, and because this red is burning the stuff on this layer, so we can see the gaps I've just made because I've just turned off the visibility over here on these two layers. You can actually see what you're working with. So there is bits of the skin still existing in places. So as I'm doing this, I'm taking all those motley bits and I'm kind of darkening them up, and just it's really kind of there making the damage stand out and see more, taking the existing and just kind of darkening it. And so now if I turn this back on, you can see what's happening. So now this is starting to look a lot more like what we want. So I kind of do some soft clicking, and then I do a bit of kind of hold and rub it around. Now there is a little bit of finesse, but I'm doing this with the trackpad on a laptop, so it's not like you need to have a fancy drawing tablet to do it, although I do have one. But this one here, now, he's looking a lot closer to what we had envisaged. So I'll just kind of work over it a bit more, and right, okay, so we're looking reasonably good here. So what I want to do is probably go in and darken, maybe clean up some of the bits on the inside, and just kind of work over it a little bit more. But by and large, I've got kind of some blood, if you will, in the here. This here, now, if you were to say this is a Terminator unit, this guy is, you know, he's one of the Terminators. He was a fighter and supposed to look like a thug or what have you, but actually was an undercover agent as a Terminator. It actually seems somewhat believable. Right, so I'm just going to get the eraser now, and I'm going to change it to a standard brush. It's like a brush, but it's just taking away. And I'll change the size right down. Just want to clean up a little bit of the stuff on the inside here. Oh, that's no, a big chunk. Right, make that brush way smaller. Alright, okay, and the eye there doesn't seem all that helpful. Okay, so this is looking largely good. So now what I want to do is I just want to kind of draw in some black just to help darken up a few places and just make it sit nicer. So what we're going to do is make a new layer, because if I'm drawing black on or brushing it on, and I'm going to take my color off brush to normal, and it doesn't work, I don't have to worry about undoing what I've just done. Right, brush, let's just change this, cut it to black, and we're going to shrink that right down, and turn the opacity up. Right, so I should be able to kind of, what's happening here, go on now, it's like 100%. Yes, you can see where I'm darkening bits and pieces. So if I turn my layers off, you can see that's it there. So I'm going to make my brush larger because it does help get the effect in a bit quicker. Just kind of dirties up a bit what we're working on. And it's the thing, his face isn't going to stay kind of completely. You just got to be careful with your clicking. Clean with this, and you just don't forget your undo is Control Alt, and then just keep hitting Z while you got them held down. Now, what's starting to happen is the underneath Terminator is not really fitting with this. So I'm going to click on the Terminator, make a new layer. Sits in between the two, and so now when I start brushing, it's kind of going to go on a layer in between, and it means that I can kind of darken up bits on the Terminator unit that I might need to. Make this brush a lot smaller. Because not all the lighting over here is what we need. Right. Okay. So using a few multiple layers and adjusting, there is your Terminator unit. This eye is probably not looking too bright. Actually, I want to colour burn that. I want it to be a deeper red. That's what I want. Colour burn. Oh, that was very aggressive. Turn that down, right. Right, okay. So yeah, that's our guy who's now become a mech unit. Now, if we wanted to take other parts of it and do, you know, the bit of the chest or the shoulders or what have you, we can. For those who are interested, there's definitely other effects you can do. So, for example, he's got a scar from here, from sword fighting or whatever he's been doing, and also his tattoos. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the handy tool. It's called the spot healing. Yeah, we'll try and use this. Yeah, the healing spot one. So essentially, we can draw over this, and it will try and just take skin tone from around the area, and it will, for the most part, do with the software from Photoshop. Figure out what it wants you to do, so we can effectively do some expensive laser removal surgery on this guy's chest to look like, for the most part, he hasn't had the tattoo. The other way you can do it, because it's not exactly 100% perfect, is you can use a clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool, this one here, you hold Alt and it goes to the little target, and what it does is it says, right, that's what I'm going to be doing, and then you can kind of click and it's going to just rebrush that surface further down. So effectively, good way to show exactly what I mean, which is awkward, but say if I do this, I'm redrawing, see, I'm just basically redrawing whatever's down there up here. So you can see the shadow of the muscle kind of going down there. So I can see I'm just drawing basically everything that's over there has just been transferred there. Everything there was transferred there, so it keeps following through. Let's try and undo that. Right. So you can use that to do the same thing. Oops. Okay, got the constant tool Alt right there. So, and then you just need to, once it starts getting too close, let's just reselect it. Right, but yeah, like I said, this is not perfect. So we can go into the Liquify gallery. And this is where people bulk themselves up and trim away unwanted pounds that are on the photos in magazines. Basically, if you, oh, I don't want to take that much. Make this brush way smaller. In magazines, you are looking at about 95% or kind of 98% of photos in magazines have been photoshopped, have had someone tweaking at them. So anyone looking at a magazine going, gosh, I wish I looked like that person. Funnily enough, that person's also saying, gosh, I wish I looked like that person too. So don't get too caught up in what you see other people looking like in magazines, because they've had a professional doing stuff like this. Okay, so I've cleaned that up. But to give you an idea, right, this one's called the bloat. If I make this bigger, not that big, I can bloat by pressing out muscles and say, we don't like that kind of thing there. You can take the pucker tool. Sorry, this is the nudge, I think it's called. Or forward tool, whatever. And we can take an area and we can just push it in and make it all trim and lovely. And just do that carefully. So that is the kind of thing that gets done in photos you see in magazines all day, every day. Alright, and you got the pucker tool. This one here will make it a little bit bigger. Right, we can take this whole area and just shrink it, make it centered, and say, oh my goodness, he looks so amazing. He's just trimmed down, he's looking so athletic, ready for his fight. But it's just Photoshop skills. So you can see that's the muscle here, and I can kind of do this. I mean, the guy's in really good shape. But I can do this here, and you can say that actually, oh no, I've just added 20 kilos of muscle on subtly all over the place. So there you go. So I've got that fixed. But I've also got his dominant shoulder. He obviously does a lot of punching with that shoulder only. But you can undo it, and it will put it back. But yeah, you get an effect of how much of a subtle change that makes. Like, you're actually going, oh my goodness, he looks so much bigger there. But that was the sucking in the whole area and then pushing things in, plus that there. So if I did that side as well, you can see how much of a dramatic effect that can have on a scale. So it's just to show you a little bit of kind of the ethical things that happen around Photoshop as well.